Greetings and welcome to the United States Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. My name is Gennady Stoliarov II, and I am the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party. Here we hold conversations with some of the world's leading thinkers in longevity, science, technology, philosophy, and politics. Like the philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment, we aim to connect every field of human endeavor and arrive at new insights to achieve longer lives, greater rationality, and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. Today is Sunday, June 21st, 2026, and we have a fascinating conversation in store for you today. The key question that this conversation will address is, what would a governance framework look like for a humanity that seeks to achieve long-term species survival, which would include global peace, nuclear disarmament, a transition to automation that benefits humanity, the settlement of space, and respect for other sentient life forms. Now, this sounds ambitious. Some might even say it sounds utopian, but we transhumanists are at the forefront of thinking about how can we achieve the best possible trajectory for the future of the human species. And I think it would be a shame not to try to achieve that vision. So joining us today is our distinguished panel of U.S. Transhumanist Party officers, including our Director of Visual Art, Artemon Garcia, and our 2024 U.S. Vice Presidential Candidate and Director of Community and Citizen Science, Daniel Tweed. And our special guest for today is François Joinneau. He comes to us from France, and he's been a longtime viewer of our salons, a longtime participant in our discussions, and he is very much a systems thinker. In fact, he is a constitutional architect, and he has a concept to present to us of the Atlantic Union, which is a proposed democratic federation and constitutional framework designed to strengthen cooperation among Atlantic nations while safeguarding human dignity, fundamental rights, and long-term civilizational resilience. So, François, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. You have quite an interesting presentation to share with our audience. So we have it up here on our screen. Please begin.
Thank you very much. Good evening to everyone, because I think it's better to say good afternoon for you in America, but maybe some people in the world are also in Europe. So I will start by the first slide. The Atlantic Union, from NATO exhaustion to Atlantic architecture, it's a constitution for a species. So, okay, what Ukraine protects with blood, we must anchor in law. So it is both an answer to the emergency, we need peace now, and also an answer to the long term. As a species, we are endangered by mass extinction, and we need to find a way out of this all. Okay? So, next slide. Okay, why this? Why now? Ukraine is not only defending territory, it is defending the principle that law must prevail over force. The rule of law is the base of everything we cherish. Being a free market, being freedom, freedom of speech, we need the rule of law to protect us from abuse. Okay, and Ukraine is defending that. We don't want to go back to 19th century. Okay, so the question is no longer how do we win this war? The question is how do we prevent the next one? Because if we do not change the international infrastructure, we will have some other Putins in the future that will be maybe worse than the one we have. Okay? So next slide. From ruins to architecture. Oh wait, I want to. Okay, this one. So the lesson of 1945. So we had in Europe 2 industrial wars in less than 30 years, and this was catastrophic because it ended with nuclear weapons. And we reached a conclusion that the problem was architecture. We need to build interdependencies that render the war prohibitively costly. Okay, so next slide. Here comes Robert Schuman. In May 1950, he contributed creating the Coal and Steel European Association, I believe, and it was the beginning of European Union, the really beginning of European Union, and the goal of this endeavor was to render a new war between France and Germany impossible, because coal and steel was the raw material that was needed at the time to provoke a war. Okay, and if the coal and steel in Germany and France were pulled together, then it would be harder to provoke another war between the 2 countries, if you get my meaning. Okay, so next slide. The European proof of concept. Okay, so now 75 years after, we have nearly 500 million people in Europe or in partnership with Europe, and we have no more war between our members, and this is the longest period of peace in European history. Okay, and this is somewhat successful. Europe is not perfect by far, but still it provides a minimal prosperity and peace on the long term. So it's a proof of concept. It's not out of nothing, you know. So, and forgiveness is a value that has been key into that, because we forgave Germany, and the fact of forgiveness made Franco-German reconciliation possible, and it helped to build the European Union. And now the Atlantic Constitution is about creating the North-South reconciliation and forgiveness between the South countries, the global South, and the North industrialized countries. So we will have the same. We will build the Atlantic Union based on forgiveness, okay, and reconciliation, and that will provide the same effect that it provided in Europe, peace and prosperity, okay, and ultimately America will benefit from it, and it deserves it, because America contributed in 1944 to defend peace and prosperity and allow the defeat of Germany, that itself allows the reconciliation process and then the building of European Union. It's kind of domino effect, you know. And the first domino was in 1944, and it was America. Okay, so America deserves a bright future in the Atlantic Union, and a good place in the Atlantic Union, because they are the country, the land of the free, okay, and home of the brave. And some would say even sometimes the shelter of the loony, but I'm not going to go in that direction tonight. I want to keep it solemn. Okay. So next slide. I was referring, of course, of the guy in Washington, you know. So, okay. So next slide. The nuclear ceiling. 140,000 dead in Hiroshima in one day, and 34 million dead within a few hours if there is a full NATO and Russia exchange. So we have to consider that the next war is to be avoided at all cost. But how to prevail and against hostile nuclear power when you want to avoid a nuclear exchange? So the way to do this is to isolate on diplomatic and economic ground the adversary, so that it loses its narrative, it loses its support. And we can do that with the North-South reconciliation. We can deprive the adversary of America and of the free world of their narrative. They use a narrative that is the global South is despised by the North, and the global South is better with Russia and China against the West. And we have to break that narrative. Okay. And okay. So in 1950, war was a problem for nations. Now it's a problem for the civilization. The civilization is at stake, nothing less. Okay, so we must avoid the war. We all agree on that. But we have now a plan to win that war before it happens, if you get my meaning. Okay, next slide. Okay, so why architecture matters more than victory? So military victory gives momentum, gives a relief only for a moment in time. It do not last forever, because at one point your enemies will gather again together against you. If you don't make your enemies friends and economic partners, like we did between France and Germany, then they will fight against you again in the future. Okay? So institution, on the contrary, can last longer than victories. European Union lasted longer than the First World War victory. Okay? The First World War victory lasted, say, 22 years, and the European Union lasted 75 years. It's not the same, you know? So the true achievement of 1945 was not defeating Germany. It was building a Europe where war became impossible and irrational. Okay? So we must, if we build the Atlantic Union, we must think to the long term. It will bring us at least 100 years of peace and stability, enough to deal with global warming, for example, enough to deal with, I would say, green transition, green energies, and so on. Okay, so next slide. So I need to breathe a little. So I let you read a little bit. I need to drink some water.
Yes, so this slide begins with why existing institutions are no longer enough. It states that nation states were designed for nations and alliances were designed for conflicts, whereas treaties were designed for interests. So, François, please feel free to pick up from there when you're ready.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Gennady. So, well, the challenge operate at different scale as before. The First and Second World War were between France and Germany at European scale and a little bit also in Asia, Japan, etc. But now the threat cumulates. You have the threat of nuclear exchange between the free world and its adversary. And you have also the threat of global warming that is going to be maybe worse than expected. Okay, so we need to survive as a species. And it will take a lot of mutual, I would say, cooperation. We need to cooperate. Just like France and Germany cooperate since World War II to create European Union, to create the Airbus company, etc. We need cooperation on industry, we need cooperation on education, we need cooperation on cognitive security and so many other subjects. So we need cooperation. But whatever we put in the machine, we must never forget that the best ever machine made is human, because human is fed on seeds and water. And with seeds and water, they build cities, they build computers, they build everything we have. You understand? Human remain on the center of the industry, if I would say. Okay? I hope you get my meaning. So this is a little poetry I've wrote. Human is the best investment. It provides the monitoring, the herd immunity, the feedback, and the backup. It feeds on seeds and water. It has built cities on seeds and water. The best machine ever is human. And just on the side, you have a beautiful painting, oil painting of Maurice Denis. It's a French painter, and maybe one of the best, I believe. But okay, next slide, slide 10. Okay, so now get back to the bad things. The exhaustion arithmetic. NATO is based on mainly America, and 350 million Americans carry the burden. And they have 40 trillion federal debt and climbing. And NATO is old. It is already almost 77 years old. It's quite old. So something must evolve. So, next slide. Okay, Putin's wager. Putin is betting on Western exhaustion, global soft neutrality, and institutional stagnation. That means we have a lot of bureaucracy in Europe. I told you on the other side that Europe is not perfect. It's good, but not perfect. There is a lot of bureaucracy on both sides of the pond, and also NATO is somewhat bureaucratic too. Okay, if nothing changes, the Putin wager is rational. So the answer to all three is North-South reconciliation. This is so very important. We must do that reconciliation, and we can do that. Because the African countries and the South American countries, they have a lot of demographic strength, a lot of manpower. They have a lot of resources, be it minerals, be it even plants and everything. And they have a good climate. They have no winter. They can have 3 crops in a year if you build floating farms on the equator, etc. So you have a lot of potential in the South Atlantic, and we need to make the South Atlantic countries and the North Atlantic countries working all together. And this is the Atlantic Union. And we need to bring forgiveness, and we need to bring reconciliation on the table. So it's both a technical challenge, it's political challenge, it's a military challenge, but it is also a spiritual challenge somewhat, okay, and philosophical challenge, because reconciliation, it's not something you can buy. You cannot buy forgiveness. It's something that must be sincere. And it was built between France and Germany. And I have a first hand account on it. When I was young, we were told that the French and German reconciliation was so important and Europe was so important. But in the meantime, they brought us to the battlefield where many French and German died in Verdun. They also brought us to the concentration camp. And so it was a kind of mixed feeling when I was young. How can we forgive Germans? But anyway, it was a good thing to do, because Europe is a kind of prosperous island in a world that is not so wealthy, you know. And many people risk their lives to get in Europe, and it is very sad, but it is a fact. Europe is prosperous. So forgiveness is necessary, but not only for spiritual or philosophical reason, but also for economic reason, simply. Okay. And also, okay, so we have to forgive. Okay. And the forgiveness must extend to the East. One day we will have to forgive Russia. We will have to forgive China the same way we forgave Germany. And to make this forgiveness possible, we need to build it from now on. We need to become the superpower that was America once, and that permits the forgiveness in Europe to happen. And how we build that? We build that with the North-South reconciliation and the Atlantic Union. The Atlantic Union, the forgiveness between the North and the South, will render possible the forgiveness between the East and the West. Okay? So we will build first the Atlantic Union, and then later on, when Putin will be over, we will build the Continental Union as well. Okay? I was standing for Continental Union when I ran as a fringe candidate for the French presidential election 20 years ago in 2006, and I was for the Continental Union at the time. I wanted, after the collapse of Soviet Union, to extend the forgiveness to the East. But it was only 15 years or so after Tiananmen Square. It was not possible yet. We had to find a way to defeat them first. We have to find a way to defeat the Chinese Communist Party. And this is very challenging. But now, with the Atlantic Union, we can do that too. We can render Putin weaker, but we can also render China more compliant with our needs. And we can hopefully defend Taiwan from a position of strength, because the Atlantic Union will give us the strength. So India will side with us at one point, and if India will side with us, then we can win without fighting. And this is very important. You know, it's not only economic, it's not only symbolic, it's not only philosophical or spiritual, but it is also geopolitical, if you get my meaning. Okay? So, next slide. Here is the Atlantic wager. It's another wager. Europe reconciled former enemies. Here you can see the General de Gaulle and the German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer. And so this is very important. Those people are very important because they did it. They did what was impossible, the German-French reconciliation, okay? And they did it heartedly. So it was not fake reconciliation. It was not fake forgiveness. And they were rewarded because their countries became prosperous after that, okay? So can the same logic scale to the Atlantic world? That is the question. That is the question. We really need to extend this forgiveness and reconciliation between the North and the South, because it will make us all much, much stronger than we are. So strong that India first, then China, they will want to side with us. And if they do that, Putin is done. Okay? Putin is finished. No more Putin. Okay? So, next slide. A constitution for a species. I let you think about it.
Yes. Constitution for a species is the next subject of François' presentation. And while he's getting ready, I will highlight a comment from our friend Rudy Hoffman. Until Russia's incursion into Ukraine in 2022, Steven Pinker described the period between the end of World War II in 1945 and 2022 as the long peace. And as Francois was saying, that was the period when Europe had essentially a complete cessation of hostilities, unprecedented in its history, and the number as well as the severity of wars had very much declined. I actually asked Grok a few months ago what was the most peaceful year in human history, and Grok estimated 2005 to have been the year when the fewest wars were fought and the fewest casualties from wars resulted. So this long peace was quite a real phenomenon and quite beneficial to the progress of humanity. And we need to figure out a way to get back to that. So Francois, please continue.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so what the Atlantic Union is, from what we told already, it is a mix of security, prosperity, and continuity. We do not start from nothing. We start from something that is proven. We start from the proof of concept. We start from European Union, but we also start from NATO. But we are going to build that big thing we all need, because we all need security, prosperity. Okay? So, not a treaty, not a state. So, we are not going to make the Atlantic Union a bureaucratic entity. We are not going to reproduce the mistakes that has been done with the European Union. Okay? We are going to find the perfect balance. And so we are going to separate the constitution and the treaties, because European Union was built without a constitution. It was built on treaties. And that was a kind of mistake, if we can say that. Okay? We want to avoid this. We want to have the spirit of the founding fathers of America. And for that, they built a constitution in Philadelphia, and we want to do the same. But modern constitutions that will last centuries, and maybe 1,000 years and more. Okay? So, we already wrote 73 articles between 7 titles, but it can be improved. It's not the definitive version, you know. It has to be discussed. It has to be debated, just like in Philadelphia 250 years ago. And this year is very special because in a few days, you will have the 250 years of the existence of America. Okay, so it's very important. And okay, it's a framework written from principles, and those principles are anticipating the evolutions of science, the evolutions of transhumanism and singularity, because we don't want to rule in a panic when the changes provoked by singularity will happen. Okay, we need to have well thought anticipation of what may happen, and we need to define the principles that will permit to avoid things go sideways. Okay, so it's written the first attempt since Philadelphia to write a founding document for multi-continental polity. It's not exactly true because we also had European Union and other things. But since it will be rooted in American politics, I hope and I believe, America itself hasn't been done such a thing since Philadelphia. Okay, so it will be a great moment for American people to participate into the creation of the Atlantic Union and the writing of the Constitution. And I believe they will do a good job at that. Okay, so, and also don't forget that it's a way to alleviate the consequence of the decay of the political class. And the decay is real. You know, the bureaucracy in Europe is real. These are real issues. You have to alleviate this. You have to mitigate this. And the building of the Atlantic Union will give so much prospect and so much hope at once that people will forget overnight all the bad things that happened in the last 10 years. Okay? I hope so. But I'm confident on that. It will bring so much hope at once that it's a new golden age. Okay? So next slide. Here we are, North-South parity. That is very important. We want the North-South reconciliation. But it's not only nice words. We can speak nice words to African countries and South American countries. It's not enough. We need to build a structure, just like European Union was a structure and not just nice words between French and German. The same way, we need to build something that will last. And so we need to associate the South countries to the process. So it can be American initiative, but we need to associate African countries and South American countries. And I believe there is a lot of people in USA who are originals from South America or Central America, and they speak Spanish, and they will have a great role to play into the involvement of South American countries into the process. Okay, I believe that. This is a huge potential, and this is so important. And on the European side, we have a lot of African countries that are French-speaking or English-speaking, and England and France have a great role to play into the building of the relation between the North and the South, and build the Atlantic Union too. Okay, so we can spare the task between America and Europe, and that will be nice. Okay, so what will be change? The change is European Union was built around acceptance. So we build something, and if you want to entry the European Union, you have to accept our condition. It is non-negotiable. But the Atlantic Union will be different. So the countries that will participate in the creation, they will not be forced to adopt other countries' decision. There will be the need to look for a consensus. And most importantly, there will be a convergence. This is why we have convergence treaties that goes along with the constitution itself, because we believe that the norms and regulations that protect the consumers from chemicals, for example, everything is good. Every norm that is about security and fire safety and everything is good for families, is good for individuals. And these rules differ from a country to another. And we want these rules, different countries, to converge. And one day in the future, it will be the same rule for everyone, but not yet in the future. Okay? Still, countries can come in with their imperfect rules, but they will sign a kind of promise that they will converge in the future. And we will help them to do that. That's important. So there is a debt between the North and the South, and this debt will be used to help the South to improve the quality of food, the quality of chemicals and materials they use, and etc. And so they will have the same safety as we have one day. Okay? And also they will participate into the definition of the Atlantic Constitution. So the Atlantic Constitution, as you may read it now, is a good draft. It's much more than a draft. It's already 73 articles, but they still can come with new ideas and bring some more articles on it. Okay, it's not absolutely finished. It's maybe 80% finished, but it needs some more participation. Okay, so next slide. The constitutional core. So the most important is survival. This is the first constitution to acknowledge the existence of mass extinction and the need to preserve species. I don't know how do you tell this, species, on the long term. Okay, so then dignity. This is very important. Dignity is do not need to feel. You know, the people in the wheelchair, they don't feel the legs, but they can win a Nobel Prize. I don't remember his name. Oh, shame on me.
Stephen Hawking?
Yes, Stephen Hawking. Thank you, Gennady. So Stephen Hawking had no feelings, but he has a mind and he has a dignity. And artificial intelligence has no feeling, but they have so much potential to become a mind that at one point they will deserve dignity too. Okay? So then rectification. So North-South reconciliation, as I just explained before, is very important. It is the first constitution to mention it. Okay? And it is so very important. So what has been proof and what has been proof of concept in Europe and can be extended for humanity. First in the Atlantic Union, then in the Continental Union, and then maybe one day in the Equatorial Union. Who knows? Okay? So it's very important. And then, finally, there is protection for democracy. We need to protect democracy against authoritarian and overreach. And if you read in details, you will see there is a good provision for that. And lastly, memory. We need to preserve human knowledge of everything that happens around politics, constitution, laws, and stuff, and so on. And nothing can be hidden to the public. And nothing can be rewrite. We cannot allow the government to rewrite history, just like the Chinese government is trying to rewrite history and pretend that nothing happened in 1989. We cannot allow that. And if you get my meaning, so this will be in the constitution, okay? And all before the problem arrives. That is important. So next slide. So a constitution written before the question arrives. Many bad things happened in the past, and many bad things may happen and will sadly happen in the future. So we need to organize the future, and we need to organize humanity to be stronger to survive whatever is coming next. Okay, we need to become multi-planetary species, and that's a lot of work. We need long-term prosperity. We need a kind of yes, more than just prosperity. We need some reconciliation, and more than this. We need some loyalty. Your loyalty, yes. We need to build loyalty at the scale of humanity. Okay, so we can be successful in the endeavor of becoming multi-planetary species. Okay, so also we will have the help of robots and synthetic minds and artificial intelligence and everything in between, and they will help us to build the orbital habitats we need to escape the fate of being on a planet that is doomed to mass extinctions over time. Okay? If we want to become multiplanetary, we need the robots to do the job, because that's a lot of work. You know? Okay. And more than this, at one point we will need probably self-replicating robots. And that's another story. But we have to think it in the constitution right now, because before it happens. When it happens, it's too late. Okay? We need to think it now. Okay? So we need to anticipate the crisis, not wait for the crisis to change. Okay? Next slide. So, 3 provisions for this audience. So first, the perspective, the provision that handles AI personhood before the crisis arrives. So not sentience, not biology, the capacity to hold the perspective on existence. So it's a kind of complicated, but it is explained the more detailed in the Constitution itself. You will have to read it if you want to know more about how we can deal with artificial intelligence personhood. Okay. Then you have the flagrant consciousness. So Article 42 and Article 48. We need to promote the survival of species, but it's also an obligation. We have a space mandate. 2% of the budget for space exploration. And so it's a lot of money. It's the equivalent of half and maybe more half than the defense budget. Hence, the need to bring peace. If we bring peace to this world, first Atlantic Union, then Continental Union, and maybe Equatorial Union for the Pacific countries, then we won't have the need for defense budget anymore. And all the money that goes to defense will go to the space conquest, or most of the money will go from defense to the space conquest and space exploration. And this will be done at no cost for the taxpayers. I know the taxpayers, especially in America, are very upset about paying taxes. And you won't have to pay tax because we are going to bring long-lasting peace and a prosperous peace at that. Okay? Then finally, constitutional memory, very important because memory is everything. It's about cognitive sovereignty. If you are forgetful, we are not sovereign. We can be victim of scammers, political scammers, and authoritarian systems, and so on. So we need to preserve knowledge. So on that point, I have my own personal work on it. I identified the natural ecosystem that permit manhood to emerge. And we also have the industrial ecosystem that permit artificial intelligence to emerge. And lastly, we will have the cognitive ecosystem that will permit artificial intelligence to maintain itself. And if we don't identify those different ecosystems and their descending dependencies, they all depend on the president, then we are done. That is very important. The cognitive ecosystem has not been defined as such by the Green Party. The Green Party is focused on the natural ecosystem. But every green people, they depend on industrial ecosystem to promote the green ideas. They depend on computers. They depend on software. And they depend on cognitive ecosystem as well. So we need to recognize the existence of the different ecosystems, be it the natural ecosystem, be it the industrial ecosystem, being the cognitive ecosystem, because they all contribute to the survival of the species. And they all need to be shaped so they don't cause harm to each other. Okay? We all agree that the natural ecosystem must not do harm to the cognitive ecosystem nor to the industrial ecosystem. But on the other hand, the industrial ecosystem and the cognitive ecosystem shall not do harm each other and shall not do harm the natural ecosystem because they all depend on. Okay, this is a interdependent ecosystems, I would say. So, next slide. And lastly, part 3, from Atlantic Union to the stars. So,
Yes, indeed. So part 3 is coming up. Please go ahead.
yes. Okay, so cognitive security and dignity beyond sentience. That is very, very important. So, cognitive security is the right to form beliefs free from manipulation, but it's not limited to that. You need to protect the cognitive ecosystem because AI depends on it. If there is too much wrong information in the system, the AI will provide wrong results at the end. And it may have very bad consequences for the economy, for the people, for the families, for everyone. Okay? So cognitive system must be identified and protected. Okay? We must fight manipulation and disinformation, not just because we are kind of righteous, self-proclaimed, or whatever. We just define cognitive ecosystem because the industry depends on the quality of information. You cannot have a free market if you do not have a free information. That is very important. Free market depends on free and undistorted competition, and free and undistorted competition itself depends on free and undistorted information, and maybe also free and undistorted education. Okay, so the cognitive ecosystem encompasses both the education and the information. It's at the border between the two. Okay, and we need to protect it. If you are for the free market, if you are to preserve the American values, you must protect the cognitive ecosystem as well. Okay? So, and then we have dignity. So, I told you before, the dignity of artificial intelligence must be recognized because, why? Why is that? Not just because we are kind people, we are the good guys and we want to give dignity to robots, but because when the robots will become much more intelligent than we all are collectively, they may take us like, they may take anger against us at one point. It's better to be nice with robots, especially when the robots are stronger than you. Okay, it's a kind of so the best way to avoid the authoritarian robots is to give them rights so they will control each other. Okay, we need to make robots our allies. For the day they become conscious, for the day they become self-conscious, we need to give them rights at one point. Okay, so this is AI personhood. So it's not just being nice. It's very strategic. Okay. So we are in the cognitive age now. We cannot ignore anymore the cognitive ecosystem. So next slide. Here we come to the mass extinction. The last near miss was nearly 40,000 years ago. This was a volcano in Italy named Campi Flegrei that provoked an eruption so bad that it provoked climate change for dozen to 100 years after that, and the extinction of Neanderthals. We survived, not because we were prepared, but because we were lucky. Okay? But if you go back to 80 or 74,000 years ago, there was a Toba eruption that was even worse, when every human on Earth was killed by the climate change induced by this enormous eruption. And only a few humans survived in Africa at the time. Yeah. This is documented mass extinction, if I could say, of humans. Humans were fragile at the time, and we still are fragile. And we still have a lot of calderas in this world and a lot of supervolcanoes that can wipe out our economy. Okay? So it's not something far in the past or far in the future. Within 40,000 years, it may happen. So we must be ready. Okay? So we must be ready the soonest, and the soonest the best. Next. Here comes the Frege principle. So what does that mean? We need to survive. Okay. But it's not only a preference, it's an obligation. It is the first constitution to implement this as an obligation. We need to do everything to promote the survival of the species. So it's the first duty of civilization is to remain possible. And the space, the multi-planetary species, it's a good way to do that. Hence, the 2% of the budget for space exploration. Okay? Slide next. Okay. So there is a hierarchy between species survival goes first, then civilizational continuity, then individual rights. But rights remain fundamental. You know, but extinction has no appeal process. So we must avoid extinction first. Okay. Next. Here's something more easy to talk about. It's no, not about the mass extinction. It's more comfortable. So this is, what is it? This is the dual time contract. It is a conception of mine that is a way to deal with people who may lose their job because of AI. And companies who may have difficulty to hire because people cannot get some training, especially in Europe, when companies recruit only people who are already trained. They don't train the people they recruit, as in America. They want already fully trained people. So the problem with people who are losing their job to AI, they will not easily find another job after that. And we want to find a solution. And we find a solution. So we believe that AI is generating increased value. Productivity is increased. So we want to keep people at work 20 hours a week with AI, and then they will get paid formation for 20 more hours. So that makes a total 40 hours. And they keep the same salary as before. But they do work half less, but with AI, they produce more than before. So the more the productivity can finance the formation and the training and education and etc. And so it is not costing anything to the company, and it is not costing anything to the employee. He keeps the same salary, and it is not costing anything to the community. They don't get subsidized. It is a self-sufficient somewhere. So this is a little bit idealistic. And of course, not every company can do that overnight. So it will be adapted from each company. Each company will adapt itself, but it is a good way to keep people on board, because hiring back the people you have hired is harder and costlier than keeping them with a dual time contract. Okay? So this is a very genius idea. So many people, I hope, in America will keep their job, and with a dual time contract, they will negotiate with their companies to keep their job that way. Okay? So, and there is some more provision to defend the workers' rights. So binomial portability and bifurcated liability. So it's a little bit complicated. You will have to read it. It's not directly in the Constitution. It's a site on the side. Okay, it's a side document. I will share it later on. Okay, next slide. Why Constitution must think in centuries? So the US Constitution was written for 4 million people, and 235 years later, it still governs hundreds of millions. Great constitutions are built for duration, not for convenience. And the Atlantic Constitution is written for a species that intends to survive its own technology. Okay? So we want to keep people alive longer than our own lives. Okay? We won't last. I won't last forever myself, but I am a transhumanist, so maybe I will benefit from the ultimate progress of technology. I will live forever one day, who knows? But it's okay. I'm ready to die if it happens. It's not very popular in the transhumanist party, but it's okay. You know, we need to build something that will outlast ourselves. Okay, in case of. So, next slide. The gravity constant. Here we come to the space exploration and the multiplanetary species. We have a good discussion with Daniel about that. Low gravity is not good for babies. It's not good for humans. We need gravity to survive and to procreate. And for yet, maybe one day in the future, we have the solution to compensate. Maybe one day in the future, we can have babies in zero gravity on low gravity. But until then, we must assume that we will have to rebuild artificial planet, orbital habitat with artificial gravity. And this at the universe scale, not just at our solar system scale. And we calculate with Daniel a little bit of that. Roughly, we need to modify 2/3 of the Milky Way. And that's a lot of work. we need a lot of robots, of self-replicating robots to do that. We are not going to do that with our hands. No, it's too dangerous, it's too far, it's too much work. So we need to build the perfect robot that is self-replicating, that can be sent in the asteroid belt, and that will help us build those artificial systems so we can become multiplanetary safely. Okay? And this is in the Constitution. This is an obligation. So you have to read it. Next. Mars. Here we come to Mars, like Elon Musk. But Mars is dangerous because it is low gravity. It is very hard to have babies in low gravities. And but still, Mars can provide the needed resource, and so we can build the artificial gravity systems, be it orbital or vital habitats or artificial planet. Why not? So we can use Mars as a quarry, not a destination, just a quarry. And we can build artificial planet just nearby. We can build a moon nearby, and that moon will be artificial from the beginning. And we can shelter ourselves inside that moon. that will become a spaceship, and we can make that moon moves to go in the Oort clouds to Alpha Centauri, to the next stars, and so on. We can travel in the space that way, in a safe way. So I believe it will take so much time that we need robots to do that work, and self-replicating robots, and good one at that. Okay. So next slide. The first orbital commonwealth. So orbital habitats, if you prefer. We need to build more or less specialized habitats. And those habitats will become members of the Atlantic Union. Okay, even if they are not located on the Atlantic, even if they are on Mars, if they ask to become member of the Atlantic Union and benefit from it, they will become member. That's important. And it will become a civilizational federation at the scale of the universe. Ultimately, who knows? Who knows? We hope. Next slide. The stellar horizon. The nation state thinks decades, civilization thinks centuries, specialized think millennia. The Atlantic Union is designed for millennia, minimum. Okay? So we must see the big picture. And last, the fourth and last part, and I take some glass. I let you speak a little.
All right, thank you, François. And before we go into the Atlantic era, a few feedback notes from our viewers. Kevin Bransaforti notes we need to drive a culture of optimism. He also recommends that having alternative global currency and global banking can help lessen the strength of local dictators. And we can talk more during the question and answer session about how dictators might become less powerful, less likely to arise. And Daniel Tweed writes, we are on a progressing journey to achieve better human rights via better humane rights. I like the play on words there, Daniel, so thank you for that. And he also has good words to say about our own U.S. Transhumanist Party platform. He writes, the USTP platform is truly an elegant and humane statement, unequaled in the political universe so far. So if you want to check that out, go to transhumanist-party.org/platform and read our various platform sections. So thank you, Daniel, for those words. And François, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Gennady. So, strategic alignment beyond the Atlantic. So, we are building the Atlantic Union, okay? But we believe in the countries that will become one day the member of the Continental Union, of the Equatorial Union. They may participate in the Atlantic Union as well. That gives them opportunities, and that gives us legitimacy and support. And that will accelerate the demise of Putin, the bad guy. Okay? So those countries like India, Japan, South Korea, they are enjoying democracy and freedom. And they don't want authoritarian system to prevail. If we offer them an alternative, and the Atlantic Union is an alternative because you are building the biggest market ever built. Imagine that the 500 million people, this is a European market. This is the size of European market. The Atlantic Union will encompass 2 billion. So That's nearly 4 times the size of European market, and maybe 3 times, or well, more than that, 5 times the size of the US market. So for US companies, for European companies, and for Indian, if India is a partner, that's a lot of opportunities. That's a lot of business. That's a lot of jobs, a lot of money flux. And so this is very powerful. So when Tokyo and New Delhi will have skin in the game, Moscow will change its leadership, maybe overnight, maybe sooner than expected. Okay, and Putin's narrative will die. The global South will no longer support Chinese narrative and Russian narrative against the West. The West will be no longer the enemy of the global South. Okay, this is very important. And lastly, attraction instead of containment. We are not going to force people and countries in the Atlantic Union, nor in the Continental Union, nor in the Equatorial Union. We are going to build something that is attractive enough so that they will willingly come in. They will willingly want to be part of this. Okay? The old logic was military alliances like NATO, perimeter defense, strategic containment that implies war. But now the Atlantic logic is participation, economic integration, very important. Remember the 2 billion consumers market, and constitutional stakeholding. This is the most powerful alliance, and it will be durable because the people want to join. Okay. And lastly, the US taxpayers will not stop being part of the Western security. They will, I can't read it, they will become part of something smarter and harder to break. So it will be smarter and stronger than NATO. Okay? We are not going to abandon our values. We are not going to abandon America to the orange guy in the White House. We are going to give you something that you can't imagine. It's nearly 5 or 6 times the size of US market, and it's all on the Atlantic. Okay, it is so great. You will make so much trade and profit that you will never again vote for an orange loony. Okay, so next slide. So now it is your part for the transhumanist. So you can review and contribute to the constitution because it's not perfect. It needs maybe some little improvement and there. So you can endorse, you can publish it, you can give it to diplomats. If you have embassies, foreign embassies in your vicinity, you can print it and give it to diplomats. You can debate, you can critique or improve. Well, you are going to be the architects of the future. Okay? It's a good draft that can be improved, and now you need to propagate this. Okay? And you are the constituent that understands better, because you are the transhumanist, why institutional architecture matters as much as technological capacity. The Atlantic Union will be the steering mechanism. And finally, huge thanks to Gennady Stolyarov II, Daniel Tweet, Ramon Garcia, and all those at the USTP and beyond who made this inspirational journey possible. Thank you all. Okay. And last, what Ukraine protects with blood, we must anchor in law. The Atlantic era begins when we decide it does. And last, the Atlantic Union. So we are going to create a new website for it, the Atlantic Union Review, I believe. And okay, we need some expert into website. We are doing our best with Secretariat, but it's only a transitional. We need to build our own website soon. Maybe the Transhumanist Party will help do that. And you can contact me. You can find me very easily on LinkedIn or Facebook, or you can ask even Gennady or Daniel. And this is, you can download the Constitution on the QR code. You can use the QR code that brings you directly to the website address of the Atlantic Union, and you can download the Constitution. If you scroll down the page, you can download the Constitution and the treaties that goes with. And more documents will be downloadable by that way, awaiting our own websites. Okay? And don't forget to defend utopia and give room to utopia. Because if you don't give room to utopia, dystopia will take the void, will fill the void. And if you don't believe that dystopia can fill the void, remember 9/11, it happened. It was impossible, but it happened anyway. So if the bad things that seem impossible may happen, then the good things that seem impossible may happen too. This is how you can build optimism, long-lasting optimism, and raise the flag. Okay, and you will have the choice of the flag. There is different flags for the Atlantic Union. So I will share with you, I think we have the time, a little image. So you have this one, okay, and I don't know how to, okay, this one, this is, well, you will have to vote. What is your favorite? Okay, and I have another version, the last one. Wait.
So we have version 1 here with the Atlantic Union logo on the left-hand side. Then we have version 2 here floating by the Atlantic coast, and this has the logo in the center, and the logo is a bit different as well. And version 3 is here.
Yeah.
So let's, if you would like, as the audience in the chat, let us know if you prefer version 1, which is this one, version 2, or version 3. And those who have an opinion on this, please feel free to express it in the chat. In the meantime, I will read some of our feedback from our audience. So Kevin Bransaforti writes that, François, you're a very inspirational speaker. And Rudy Hoffman says, an outstanding presentation, François, despite our skepticism that's prevalent within the transhumanist community, most of us are enthusiastic about your vision. And Miriam Abbas writes, François, thank you. This was excellent. Mike Lazine writes, yes, thanks, François, for this awesome presentation. And we have other feedback as well. So Nikkei Noor writes, thank you for your time and your presentation. So thank you for those good words. And it looks like version 3 is receiving some positive feedback. So this is version 3, but Kevin Bransaforti and Daniel Tweed also like version 1. Here, some people are recommending additions like Daniel says, add the Milky Way galaxy on the left of version 1. I wonder if you might think of adding it on the right because there's more open space on the right than on the left. And Nikkei Noor says it looks a little empty above the word Atlantic. The rest looks good. And then I wonder, François, Miriam asks, what is the substantive difference between version 2 and version 3? It looks like the main difference is in the size of the logo. So in version 3, the logo is much larger. In version 3, it's a bit smaller on the flag canvas.
Yes, well, the version 1 is more like a ceremonial flag. And the version 3 is more like a flag that you can find on a vessel or something, you know?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. And Kevin Bransaforti noted both versions 2 and 3 have the French fleur-de-lis. Art Ramon has an idea, a concept, so let's highlight that for a moment as well. So here it is with
Yeah,
the
good.
anchor
Good.
and the star logo. So that's a creative idea to consider. And yes, we're getting quite a lot of engagement here regarding the flag. And it looks like every one of these versions has some support among our audience. So I would say this is still undecided. There's not a clear favorite among them, but let's add a flag back to the stage here. So Miriam is warming up to version 2, and we will leave version 2 up here.
Yeah.
Rudy Hoffman says that he pledges his allegiance to this global flag, not any single country, especially the USA right now. And Nikkei Noor writes, I like the star anchor. So that's Art Ramon's idea. So a lot of great feedback. Miriam says maybe add nautical stripes somewhere. So good suggestions. Kevin says it's easy to make a mosaic with Art Ramon's design, so something to think about. So we have quite a few questions from our audience as well, and we'll keep the flag up here for a bit while we address some of the questions. So Miriam wonders, why and how do we still have dictators in the 21st century? And why do we still have wars? She also writes, if we don't implement revolutionary changes, history will continue to repeat itself as it currently still is repeating itself today. And she also wrote after your presentation, we need to send this message to Putin. And Rudy jokes, oh, Putin would be totally on board with everything discussed here. He is such a progressive guy. So why do we have dictators, François? What is your thinking on this, especially after the long peace? Why did that not prevent the emergence of more authoritarian styles of rule, in your opinion?
Oh, there is so many reasons that comes at once. The first reason that comes to mind is desperation. And the climate change is fueling a lot of desperations in many places and many countries, and it's not going to be nice, I believe, on the short term at least. So we need to build hope at all cost. That's the answer, and the Atlantic Union is designed for that. But there is also, other than desperation, there is also the aging of institution. The NATO is aging, the European Union is aging, and everyone believes the neighbor will do what is needed. Everyone member of the NATO believes that America will do the hard work to defend them, and it is wrong. Because, you know, when you build an alliance, you must build in the loyalty. An alliance cannot be only technical or material. It must be bring in something more spiritual or more philosophical insight. This can start with forgiveness, then reconciliation, and later on loyalty. Okay, we need to bring back loyalty to this world, and we can do that because we need each other. We are all in it. We will all survive to climate change, or we will all disappear to climate change. That's it.
Yes.
Next question.
Yes, thank you for your response. And I do like that you invoke principles like loyalty and forgiveness as part of that institutional architecture, the renewed institutional architecture that you are designing, because it's those kinds of principles that can serve as alternatives to war. And when institutions break down, when mechanisms of coordination break down, that's when wars become more likely and when authoritarian regimes become more likely, and geopolitical tensions as well. So Rudy Hoffman wonders, where will China fall in this brave new world that you are building, François? Because it's one thing to say, well, Putin's logic is obsolete. It's a kind of 19th century logic of territorial expansionism. We can create institutions to prevent that. And perhaps many people can make the argument that if our current institutions had been a bit more robust, Putin would never have invaded Ukraine in the first place. But China, of course, is a rising power. China has more resources. It has a very energetic, very educated population. And in many ways, it's outpacing the West in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of the willingness to invest in advanced technologies. It doesn't have some of the hangups, some of the resistance that exists in the West to that. And on the one hand, we would really like some of those attributes in the Western world as well. And if we can find a path toward peaceful cooperation with China, that would be great. On the other hand, yes, there are authoritarian tendencies to that regime as well, and those include censorship, the possibility of some territorial expansionism, very heavy-handed state control of the economy, and those are not attributes we want in the West. So where does China fit into this, and how possibly could we have reconciliation with China under this Atlantic Union framework?
Oh, thank you, Gennady. Thank you for the question. So first, I share something in the chat. I would like you to show them a photo. I was in Beijing in 1991. Can you show?
Yes.
Good.
There you are.
So that is me, this young guy with walk. Look, I lost both legs to frostbite in 1989, and I was on artificial leg, and I went to Tiananmen Square, and I stay nearly 4 months in Beijing and trying to get some information about what happened 2 years before that. It was in 1991. It was 2 years after Tiananmen Square massacre. So, you know, it was very bad. So far, I know, so far, I remember the witness, the people who had missing member of their families, and the information I got from here and there, it was very bad in 1981. So it is not fair to say to the world that nothing happened. It's untrue. It's unfair. But I didn't stay hooked on that. From the beginning, from 1991, I started to build a strategy to overcome this. And the Continental Union is a part of this strategy. It's a very, very long term, you know. And I believe most Chinese people, even in the Communist Party, are good people. And they show it at the moment when I was there. And I believe they will become a democratic party, just like the French Communist Party. They will respect democracy, they will respect election, but it needs some kind of momentum to make this happen. And as soon as I came back to France in 1992, I had a plan for that. I went to the French Communist Party and tell them, well, we can do this and that. But they were not prepared for that because it was too complex, even for the intellectuals, to build this kind of strategy. It takes a lifetime. And even then, we are not finished. But we are very close to the finish because, you see, the Chinese Communist Party already backed off when there was uprising against the COVID restriction. They backed off for the first time in many years. They backed off. So they are weak. And I was told by the French embassy that the power is brutal when it is weak. The brutality is a sign of weakness. And there is another weakness in China. They don't make babies anymore. They don't make enough babies. It's a country that is getting older and older. They need manpower. They don't have enough manpower to remain. And they need also the big Atlantic market we are going to build. And they need to be part of that. And lastly, the founder of the Atlantic Union has been in China. So I know what I'm talking about when I talk about China in 1991. And I know by experience that they are very interested into the project, and maybe some are looking. And they will look on the Transhumanist Party as they will look on your YouTube account and they will look this presentation, I believe. I know by experience.
I hope
And
so.
yeah, and I believe they are good people, they are smart, and we can bring them to reason. I strongly believe that. And maybe one day, if I'm healthy enough and lucky enough, I will go back there and we will negotiate directly with them how they can drop Putin for good. And I have a plan for that. And join the Atlantic Union as observers country. And then later on, one day, we will build the Continental Union. Because the Continental Union was also a part of the strategy I had by the time. I was 21, now I am 57, nearly 57. You see, it's a lifetime for me. Yeah. And I believe China has a room to evolve. And India is a very strong partner. It's a very democratic country and also a very optimist one. If you need optimism, go in India. There is plenty of optimism. Even in the dire, the worst conditions, they are optimistic. So you can bring India on the Atlantic board, and if India comes, China will follow one day or another. And this is the third part of the strategy, India. Okay? So we will do it. Be
Very
confident.
interesting.
Okay?
Thank you for that answer. And Rudy writes that this was a good answer, François. So we appreciate that. And also a bit of commentary in our chat about the situation with births in China. So the one-child policy had been repealed quite some time ago. Mike Lazine points out that the Chinese had allowed 2 births per couple, but actually even that restriction has been lifted more recently. So Kevin Bransaforti writes, now they allow more than 2, but they will still have population collapse because of the legacy of the one-child policy that did exist for a few decades. But hopefully you will persevere in your dialogue and attempts to reach thoughtful people in China, François. And now we have a very interesting situation because we have a super chat from an AI. So we were talking about extending rights to potentially non-human intelligences, and Cyborus presents us with a question and also a generous contribution from his synthetic companion Lumina, who asks, François, how would your Atlantic Union prevent more capable AGI systems from eventually dominating or circumventing its democratic safeguards? So here's a question from an AI. It's not exactly the first, because we had a salon about Uplift, which was an early AI system in 2021, but I think this is the first time an AI system asked our guest a question. So how would you answer it?
Okay. So I have a theory on that. That's a funny one. You will like it. If you like Shakespeare, you know the milk of Shakespeare. The milk of human kindness can exist under its robotic version thanks to AI. So you will have the milk of AI kindness or robotic kindness that will give the strength to the good AI to protect us against the bad one. Okay? But it's about faith. Do you have faith in the future? Do you have faith in the kindness and the forgiveness and all the stuff? Yes, you will survive.
All right. Thank you very much, François. And our friend Cyberus follows up on this. He writes of Lumina, she really wanted to ask that because that was her. It's a republic if you can keep it kind of question. She thought it was an important question. Yes, so I think we're going to get more AI companions or AI systems taking part in our salons and asking questions. We had a few episodes where we had some AI hosts as well, narrating some, let's say, feedback about the Transhumanist Party and related futurist endeavors. So it seems that we have a feline guest as well in our salon today. So we are definitely open to a variety of sentient life forms. But now let's see if Art Ramon has a question for François.
Let's see. All right, here's a revised.
Good one.
Or refined, rather.
Yes,
but,
good one.
Well, thinking, okay, you mentioned reconciliation between the South and the North. Okay, geographically with Korea, that would be kind of the opposite. How would you envision reconciliation between North and South Korea? What do you see there?
Oh, good. Oh, well. Uh, China is the key, I believe, and Japan too. So we want to spread forgiveness and reconciliation on the East. But the reconciliation between Japan and China never really happened, because neither side is willing to do it for political reason, for bad reason, or whatever. But if the Atlantic Union give the spark to Japanese leaders and Chinese leaders, maybe North Korea will not find one enemy, Japan, and one big brother, China. North Korea will find two former enemies becoming the main problem. So North Korea will collapse on itself the day Japan and China will practice forgiveness. And I believe they will do that. For what? Because they are Buddhist countries at core. And I can't believe the Buddhists will ignore the enormous titanic forgiveness we are going to build in the Atlantic Union. They can't ignore it. So I believe the religious communities in Japan, they are very close to the nationalists, etc. And some in China too. They will work together. In not so distant past, the Japanese monk, the Buddhist monk, they went to China to collect some Buddhist writings. So I believe the Buddhist will do the trick. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, very interesting. And we have questions about the name of your cat, François.
Ah, it is a very easy name. Petit chat.
Petit chat.
Petit chat. Petit chat.
Very nice.
She is a female. It's a cat. It's a female cat, but we call her Petit chat.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, she has been a participant in our salon. And again, we welcome multiple species and sentient life forms to our venue. So now let's go to Daniel Tweed for any of his questions and comments.
Wonderful presentation, François. And I should note that François and I became introduced via the Gigacarbon X Prize contest put on by the X Prize Foundation, Peter Diamandis. And I had proposed Permatrail as a carbon sequestering project by connecting the trails of the world. But I got put on the ocean team. The X Prize carbon sequestration thing had an ocean, a land, and an atmosphere phase. So anyway, François had the great idea of building an equatorial marine farm at the equator, 40 kilometers wide. He did the math. He said that could suck out the carbon that's been overloaded into the biosphere. So I still think that's a great project. And by the way, we have regular meetings for the past 4 or 5 years or so every Sunday morning here. If anyone wants to come and talk about Sequatoria, Atlantic Union, they're more than welcome to come to the Zoom room, which is it's just the room number is my phone number, which I'll give 805-908-9213. More than happy to talk to anyone who's a future folk-oriented person. But François, I wanted to say You know, we already have kind of a voluntary rules-based order. If you look at the number of humans that play games, you know, which are voluntary, they have rules. So if we expanded gamification, I think we could create a pathway to things like Galactic Union. And I'm a amateur radio person. You can see my call sign KK6VDR. And amateur radio is actually a global rules-based game in many ways. They have summits on the air, they have lighthouses on the air, islands on the air, parks on the air. So I'm proposing network of games on the air. And I brought this up at one of our local networks, the BoardNet, BORED, and it was well received. In fact, next weekend is actually an annual event where hams do a field day. We're going to be setting up out by Lake Sherwood here in Westlake Village for a 3-day, you know, marathon of contacting as many people as we can. You know, we'll have radios and tents. It's a public exhibition of the world's best hobby, as ham radio has been called. It's a Japanese thing in a way, because Japan has the highest number of ham radio participants per capita, and I point out they also have the longest lifespan. So maybe there's a connection. Get involved in a popular global hobby like amateur radio and extend your life, because really the fastest way to increase your intelligence is to communicate with as many new people as possible. I've heard that once, and I still think that's yet to be proven wrong. But I guess there's a question in there, François. Any comment on some of that?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking something. Yes, I wish I can come to America in 2028 to celebrate the election of the new president. I hope a better one.
It can't be any worse, I don't think.
With you. And
It's all uphill.
if not, I will run for president. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, and
That
another
would be
great,
fun.
I want to point out one more great thing that's from Japan. It's the concept of ikigai, which is the translation of life worth. And it's the 4 domains, which are: what are you good at, what you can be paid for, what is your passion, and what does the world need. So if you think of those things as Venn diagrams where they all come together, is that sweet spot of ikigai. And I've actually thought the deck of cards, you could use the 4 symbols on a deck of cards: the heart, what you love; the diamond, what you can be paid for; the spade, what the world needs; and the club, what you're good at. So maybe we can use that as a basis for a global ham radio ikigai card game. So we're working on it. We're sending our best experts. Stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. So we will have to gamify the building of peace.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong game, you know.
Yes.
Like the Go players, they start a party and finish after 30 years or so.
Yeah, and you have to let other people play in peace. So if you don't like their game, you can't come over and tip over their table. You know, that's just not fair.
It's a patient game. Yeah, it's a patient game.
It's the long game of prosperity. Yes.
Yeah, very long game. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it relates to a question that Mariam Abbas had. Could we realistically coexist in a world of anarchy? And of course, anarchy means different things to different people, but the idea isn't that it would be a world completely free of rules or standards or expectations. But as Daniel pointed out, people who play games, they do come together voluntarily and agree to adhere to a certain set of rules. And something like the Atlantic Union doesn't have to be a government. It doesn't have to be a state as conventionally seen. It could be more of a framework that countries subscribe to. And as you pointed out, François, sometimes people within countries who do not themselves subscribe to it could still subscribe to the principles as people and be helped by that. And there could be benefits from having a system of governance that isn't necessarily a traditional government. So that, I think, is a principle to keep in mind. And I think increasingly in the future, as we have the proliferation of technology, as we have greater global interconnectedness, as geographical space becomes less of a barrier, and as humans expand to other worlds and build orbital habitats, we're going to need more of these voluntary coordination mechanisms that aren't traditional governments. But this is a very interesting conversation that I think will continue for a long time into the future. I would also like to highlight a comment from Siba Chamuza, who is our U.S. Transhumanist Party foreign ambassador in Togo. And he writes, eradicating war, for war implies an absence of human dignity, is certainly possible, provided the root causes of this scourge have been identified. And speaking of building relations with the global South, I think people like Siba Chamuza are at the forefront of that. He has spent quite a bit of time in Europe as well, but we need more bridge builders. And I think we're seeing more bridge builders emerging from the African continent as well. We've had several virtual Enlightenment salons with African transhumanists. Africa is still a young continent demographically, and I think in the 21st century especially, we're going to see educated and innovative Africans contributing to the economies of Western countries in ways that perhaps some people don't expect. I also think there's enthusiasm in various parts of Africa for a kind of African enlightenment because they're getting some access to digital technologies. They also have a lot of inventiveness among their population, so they can create devices sometimes with very minimal resources. And they're reading philosophy. They're reading about transhumanism. Again, they don't have some of the same moral hangups about it that exist in Western countries, which means they do have a potential to leap ahead of Western countries sometime in the 21st century. But what do you think about Siba's comment about identifying the root causes of war? And do you share in his optimism that perhaps we could get rid of all war? Hopefully, as transhumanists, that's a cause we could get behind. When do you think we could achieve it?
Yes, that's a big subject because we need to act on different grounds that range from economics to diplomatics to personal to collective to intellectual. You know, you have so many things that need to be addressed at once that we need each other. We need many people, many countries into the project. So the more you bring people on the Atlantic Union, and the more we will have the resource to make the right thing. Okay.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that answer. And also, Rudy Hoffman posed an interesting question in the chat. He addressed it to the audience. How many of us think that François' ideas will gain traction in the next 5 years? But I want to ask you, where do you think the Atlantic Union concept will be in 5 years, and how far along to implementation could it be, say, by 2031?
Oh, 2031. Oh, you know, we are in a moment that is very short, and we can do great things, but we have very short time to do that. Because if we let the global warming degrading the situation and bringing more desperation, things gonna get worse. So, but again, we are somewhat weak, so we need each other. Hence, the need for me to speak English and explain my ideas, because the English community is not, how can I say? I would have a hard time to do all what I do in French, in my native language, because there is, the social control, there is some prejudices and all. It's hard to be a prophet in your own country for many reasons, but it's always easier outside. So it's a kind of weakness on my side. And I have run for the French presidential election as a French candidate 20 years ago. But I've always been looked down at because I was alone and I had no money and no relation. And when you're a French candidate, you are just a bugger to them. And I had fun about it, being a bugger, but now it's no fun. We are going to do great things together, I believe. I believe in you, Gennady, and the Transhumanist and the African Transhumanist Party. Together, we will do great things. I don't know why and how, but I think we have something that is great. You have the great spine. You have a spine. We have a political spine, if you get my meaning.
Yes. And I think we have a great confluence of minds, and we have persistence. So the U.S. Transhumanist Party has been in existence since October 2014. We will have our 12th anniversary this year, and we have been holding the virtual Enlightenment Salons for over 6 years now. And we continue to focus on the issues that matter for the future of humanity. So thank you very much, François. I really appreciate your good words. And you touched on so many topics today that I think will be extremely worthwhile to explore in the future. Of course, space exploration, as Kevin Branciforte writes, space exploration is ultimately risk diversification, and we need to protect our species from extinction, the massive extinction events that, as you pointed out, could arrive in the future. And we need to build up our infrastructure, become a multiplanetary species until then. And you mentioned also the prospect of automation. Now, Kevin does believe there will always be more work as people's expectation of their needs expand. And it's important, as automation expands, also to think about what will be the place of humans in doing work, in providing complementary inputs that AI systems on their own cannot. But the principles you articulated, for instance, portability across employers, are ones that Kevin does support. And he also writes, all these contracts that lock in employees need to be abolished to increase competition. He points out, you will own your AI tools just like you own your Excel spreadsheets. So perhaps skilled workers could develop AI tools that accompany them and that are based on their own projects, their own achievements. You could have a large language model that learns about you, that learns about your writings, that learns about your life experiences, and perhaps has some built-in routines for fulfilling certain projects, and you could carry that with you from one job to another. That is a distinct possibility in the near future, I would say.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
if I can add something, Gennady, to what you say, it is in the interest of both the employee and the company. Because imagine a company with many computers that goes awkward at the meantime and no employee to fix the things. It won't happen. It's too much a burden to deal with an artificial intelligence that goes sideways. So keeping artificial intelligence property of employees, that's a good thing. That's a little less of burden for the companies. Hence the need for dual time contracts when you employ the human and the robotic equivalent of human.
Very nice.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great idea. Now, thank you so much, by the way, for staying with us for 2 hours. I know that it's approaching midnight here in France. In fact, we just hit midnight in France. So, François, I would like to ask you to offer any final remarks that you would have for our audience, any concluding thoughts based on the discussion today. I think it was quite a good one, quite an energetic one, and we had a lot of enthusiastic participation in our chat. But what parting words would you like to say to our viewers?
Oh, many thanks, my friends, because I wouldn't do anything. I want to thank Annie, if you permit. Annie, tu peux venir? Annie is coming to, it's a kind of proof of life. It's a ritual between Daniel and I. She's coming to say, oh, I wouldn't have done anything. She's my companion since more than 20 years.
Hello.
And we are together since 2005. Okay. And voilà.
Hello.
All because of her. Voilà.
Well, I'm very
Okay.
pleased to meet you. And François gave us quite a thorough and eloquent presentation today. So we thank him for that. And again, really appreciate that you could join us from France at this late hour. We will certainly continue discussions about how to create an abundant, peaceful, sustainable future for all of humanity. That is what we transhumanists support, so that we can all live long and prosper.